We are live. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this day of Extra Give, one of the single largest days of giving in the world. Actually, I believe it is. So I'm Marci Mowery, president of the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation, and from the foundation with me is
and Metzger. Hi, everyone.
And we're super excited this morning to have Secretary Cindy Adams Dunn. She runs the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, which is where the Bureau of State Parks and the Bureau of Forests are housed. So Cindy, thank you for being here. We're excited to have a conversation with you.
Absolutely thrilled to be here.
So I want to start off, I was just flipping through Instagram and I saw that the campfire ban has been lifted. So is this rain contributing to that, this snow?
Yes, absolutely. The weather systems across the state have changed, as everyone is noticing. We finally got a lot of moisture. Actually, the moisture in the atmosphere has started coming in last weekend. So the atmospheric conditions were better starting last weekend. That added moisture to the fuel loads, i.e. like the tree trunks and the leaf duff. And so we were looking towards waiting for the next good rain system to lift the ban. And it's just in time for fall weekend where a lot of people will be recreating, people are out hunting, and people are in campgrounds trying to stay warm. It's cooled down quite a bit. I just came down from the Laurel Highlands yesterday where there was some snow sticking on the ground. So people will be ready for those campfires and those s'mores.
Excellent. Well, that's very good news. And, you mentioned people are still camping. I know a lot of people think that our parks close after Labor Day. So people can still camp?
Yes. And there's some campground loops open across our system. Every region has campgrounds that are open. We have a fair amount of camping going on during the hunting season. That's part of the tradition. You'll see maybe a shift more towards RVs, but actually there are tents out there too. And then in the forest land, of course, people are out there claiming a campsite that's close to where they want to hike or hunt. And so, yeah, people are recreating year round in Pennsylvania. Of course, this fall felt a lot more like summer until this week. And we saw a lot of active recreation across our system. And in fact, you mentioned the campfire ban lifting, but the wildfires that were going on across the state were really challenging our people, both keeping hikers and such safe, and also worried about cars parked in areas where there were wildfires moving in towards. We had the big gap fire above Palmerton that did close the Appalachian Trail briefly.
Yeah, I think the difference in Pennsylvania is, we don't have those massive expanses of land that they have in the West. So we don't allow our fires to burn. We have to contain them so they don't get to structures, they don't get to where people are. And if I'm correct, like 99% of the fires in Pennsylvania, the wildfires, are human induced. So we all have a role.
That's absolutely correct. And that's why Smokey is still a very popular bear, because his message is still very important to people. And because like you said, 99% of the fires are caused by people. Sometimes there are people recreating. Often there are people burning brush, burning leaves and brush. Or even their home. Like some places, they have home, burn pits and burn barrels, and sometimes that's the cause. Sometimes it's a spark. It was so dry, just sparks from railroads, spark from a chain on a trailer. Has something to think about for those trailering. In those super dry conditions, anything that sparks can start a fire. We don't often get those really super dry conditions in fall. Usually spring is the time we worry about the most, but this year was different. We had a very active fire season in the fall, and our fire staff are tabulating the results and reports now that they can take a breath and get some rain.
Well, I personally would like to thank all those men and women who have trained to be wildfire fighters, because that's such an important role, not just in Pennsylvania, because I know we deploy them to other states during fire season. So kudos to them. Anybody that's watching, or if you know somebody who is a wildfire fighter, thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'll pass it along. I'm going to send a note to our firefighters. And actually, I'm going to send it to the full Bureau of Forestry today. And actually, we had state park firefighters step up that got trained up and stepped up. We're going to have to continually train up more people, because with climate change, we're going to see more and more radical weather events, whether it's radical rain or radical drought. So we'll need to be more prepared. This incident, we did have to call in other states to help us. Like you mentioned, we do send people to other states. We're highly trained. Our firefighters are regarded and sought after, and often the Western wildfires. But we couldn't call in the nearby states like New Jersey and New York. They had their own. In Maryland, they were also dealing with this same drought that we were. So we had Minnesota, Michigan, and a couple other Midwestern states send trucks and personnel to help us with fires. And that was super helpful. And of course, the volunteer fire companies did a great job of turning out community support, volunteers, equipment. So that partnership between the volunteer fire companies and us is really important. I encourage any of your listeners who are even thinking about volunteering for the local fire company. They need help. So we're talking about volunteering today through Pennsylvania Park and Forest Foundation. Volunteering is so important in the public lands through parks and forests, but also in other entities out there.
Absolutely. Local communities, it's all very important. So, think about your schedule, think about what's important to you, and think about how you can give back. So those are good words, Cindy. Thank you. You mentioned that the Appalachian Trail was closed a little bit for the fire. So I'd like to use that as a segue. Pennsylvania has a vast network of trails. And in the last budget cycle, there was proposed money to help support those trails, and it wasn't successful. And at the foundation, we want to continue to advocate for investment in our trails. Could you talk a little bit about why trails are important in Pennsylvania?
Yes, I will. Yeah, thanks for raising that. And that is that trails are a system that depends so much on volunteerism. Pennsylvania Park and Forest Foundation coalesces a lot of the volunteers, KTA, Keystone Trails Association, groups like that. But we couldn't maintain a network of trails we have in Pennsylvania without a strong cadre of volunteers. I'm one myself. I maintain a section of the Appalachian Trail, 1 mile section on the mountain. What that does for me is that forces me to get out and hike and do some outdoor work on days where I might be tempted to take a pass. So it's good exercise. It's rewarding. It's tangible. But in Pennsylvania, our goal is to have a trail within 10 minutes of every Pennsylvanian. And, we have some gaps in that, but also there's needs for different kinds of trails. We need more accessibility for people who have limitations. And sometimes they're on wheels, and sometimes they just need a level surface and a bench, to be able to go see something
Absolutely.
cool. So the friends groups are a big ally there. The friends groups help us build bridges. The friends groups that are under the auspices of PPFF have been super helpful in that. We do need some more state money to build trails, and trail building is a science, and it does the initial to do it right and to reduce erosion and to create the experience does take money. We are using our outdoor corps crews and some of the funding we got in this budget cycle through labor and industry to train people on building trails and to get a workforce out there working on trails. So we're doing it with partners and allies and with our own staff and with the outdoor corps. We will continually seek funding. The more funding we can get, the better we'll do at building this network of trails. We are also continuing to push to close the trail gaps and the rail trails across the state. This year was a good year. We closed a couple trail gaps on Erie to Pittsburgh. One was at the Kiski Junction. Another was the Brady Tunnel. I just out to Brady Tunnel recently. Armstrong Trails Association closed those 2 gaps. It was kind of phenomenal. We're working away at connecting the Pine Creek Rail Trail into Wellsboro, the Marsh Creek Greenway. That's with the help of the county and support from the county, they've been leading on this. We've been able to help fund them. And of course, our staff in the Tioga Forest District and the Tioga Forest District are key. We run the Pine Creek Rail Trail, but we want to bring that right into town. That'll be an economic boost for the region, but also a wonderful experience for locals and tourists. But the foot trails need a lot of love. I mean, think about the foot trails that and they go on. They're probably built on old forest roads, probably took advantage of something already there. And there's been a lot of erosion and we're not built for what they're being used for. So we have to continually focus on these trails and improve them and get in there and build them and help with them. So PPFF's work on that realm has been extremely helpful and it's gotten a lot of work done.
Well, thank you. We're very excited to do that because we know that if people get outside, it helps to improve their health, helps physical, mental, and emotional.
Yeah.
Nothing like spending a day or even an hour or half hour on a trail walking. You can feel your stress go down. It's much more serene. And I was reading some of the research from the State Comprehensive Outdoor Rec Plan that talked about people who hike, trail users, tend to spend more money in local communities. So it's also really good for the economy of Pennsylvania. So these investments that we would like the General Assembly to make are really investments into the health of Pennsylvania citizens, as well as the health of the economy of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, people might assume, like, you look at the gear hikers taking with them, you think that's not going to generate a lot of economy. In fact, like you said, it generates a lot of economy. Hikers spend a lot of money. They stay overnight. They go to the local brew pub. They go to a restaurant. They buy something cool. They have buy a vehicle. It gets them back into the trailhead. It's all real good. On the health thing, I'm glad you mentioned that. When the Shapiro administration came in, the secretaries of health, the secretary of drug and alcohol prevention, and the secretary of aging all really sought me out to talk about how trails and parks really fit into their missions. And these other secretaries are really onto the role of trails and parks and supporting their mission. The secretary of DDAP leads recovery hikes. I was out on a recovery hike at one of the parks with her, and she's led 10 of them across the state. I did the Colonel Denning one. She did 10 of them. We used parks across the state. But recovery is something that is important element in society, really helping people in drug and alcohol recovery get to a better place and re-enter society, healthy, productive, etc. So, and you mentioned mental health. I think mental health on the whole spectrum of things, this everyday stress, every week stress that everyone feels, to the farther end of the spectrum where people are on a program with professional help. Outdoors can be part of that. And then in aging, the aging secretary himself is out hiking all the time. I get photos from him, but hiking and walking are critical for healthy aging. And that relationship's well understood, and we're building ties to the Department of Aging. As you said, the state recreation plan calls all this out, but that's all icing on the cake in addition to the economy, the tourism, the quality of life that outdoor recreation, the parks and trails and forests really bring.
That's so true. Thank you for emphasizing that. You mentioned the Pennsylvania Outdoor Corps. We may have listeners who don't know what that is, and at the foundation, we're super excited about the Outdoor Corps and what they're able to accomplish. So I think Pam, while you're talking, we'll put up a link to the page and also put it in the chat box if people want more information. But could you take a minute or two to talk about the Outdoor Corps?
Yeah, and we really appreciate the foundation's financial support of Outdoor Corps crews. This is our modern day CCC, our Civilian Conservation Corps. It's a Pennsylvania Outdoor Corps. We have two programs. One is for youth, the 15 to 18-year-old, and one's for adults. The adults are 18 to 25. The adult crews are 9-month crews. They're we have the cultural crew, and then the summer youth program is like 6 to 7 weeks in the summer. And They work physically in parks and forests and trails. They learn skills directly from our maintenance and tradespeople. They have access to our educators, our rangers, our managers, and even our executive team here in Harrisburg. We all fan out and go out and work with a crew to talk to them about careers in conservation and careers in the outdoors, because I think a lot of people don't realize there are careers in this field and a whole realm of things, from lawyers to engineers to geologists to recreation professionals to foresters, you name it. There's a broad array, communication staff, etc. So this is a job skills program. Labor and Industry has metrics and advice and connections they use to help us. They really to really prepare these young people, whether the adult crews or the youth crews, for work in any job. They learn the soft skills of teamwork, communication, showing up on time, creating a resume, looking people in the eye, shaking hands, presenting themselves well. So we're helping the workforce of Pennsylvania. Of course, we'd love to capture everyone for the conservation field, but we know that that's not going to happen. But all of them will leave the program with a deeper knowledge on workforce skills and work skills that they can take to any job, but also appreciation and knowledge about the outdoors for conservation, about how to take care of public lands, and how to enjoy them.
Excellent. And sometimes I think it's just as important to have people that are excited about conservation going into careers outside of conservation, so that they can bring that perspective.
Yes.
So
absolutely. I guess over the years, people with that appreciation sitting in the right seats
absolutely
make a big difference. So absolutely.
Yeah, I know we're running a little bit over on the time that we committed with you. But I wanted to ask a little bit about inclusion. I know DCNR recently released their Spanish language recreation guide. So thank you for that. It's a great resource. So it's available in both English and Spanish and helps you to explore your state parks and state forests. I've asked Pam to pull up the viewfinders that PPFF and the PA Wilds and DCNR recently put into place. So can you take a few minutes to talk about what DCNR is doing to be more inclusive?
That's Jim Grace. That's great.
It is Jim Grace.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So our mission, in fact, going right back to our Constitution, is to serve all Pennsylvanians. In Pennsylvania, we have environmental rights baked into our Constitution. All citizens have the right and access to clean air, pure water, and access to the natural environment. And so to make that possible, we've got to expand our opportunities and make parks and forests welcoming for all. And that runs a gamut of language, ethnicity, abilities, and any other barriers that people may have. And that, therefore, the colorblind viewers, which PPFF really helped Pennsylvania Wilds get on the ground in many of our PA Wilds parks. And interestingly, Governor Shapiro's colorblind. And so when he found out, he spotted that when the governor's office spotted that on our agenda, he joined us. And joined us with a local citizen who had used the viewers the week before. When you think about color blindness, it's often red, green, and think about fall colors. I mean, this legacy of Penn's Woods, fall colors we all look forward to. And people who are colorblind don't see it the same way. They don't see the reds and greens. Well, they're some of the key colors. So we, the governor was awestruck. So was our local citizen model who helped explain what it's like to look through these. So that was just one great example. Accessibility, removing language barriers, removing cultural barriers. We put signs up at trailheads and parks saying, "You are welcome here." Just explicitly declaring that. We understood that as a best practice to make sure people all know this is public land. You're welcome here. And then looking at the things that really allow people to enjoy the resources better. And PPFF has been extremely helpful in some of the ADA kayak launches or the accessible kayak launches. Another good one, helping with this connectivity and bridges and trails that will allow families that are maybe coming to the parks and enjoying a big family picnic, but making it more welcoming to walk into the woods a little bit and enjoy some time outside. Where's that, Marci? Is that Pine Grove?
I'm gonna ask Pam. She popped it up there. Probably
That's Cook Forest. That's the
Cook Forest. Oh, that's the
trail.
Century Trail at Cook Forest. Yes, this great Century Trail there. People of all abilities and perceptions and ability to see. I mean, people can follow that line and really, I mean, when you go into the woods, the Century experience isn't just sight or isn't just sound. It smells, it's everything. And giving people with some sensory limitations that access is good. And also, as you saw in the Century Trail, some people need, a flatter, more level, opportunity to get out there and experience parks and forests. But again, we look at all these potential barriers 13 million Pennsylvanians have. We look at each potential barrier and try to remove it or improve it and try to make it better for everybody.
I recognize that person on the wheeling down the trail there.
I had to put a plug in for my favorite wheelchair user. That's my favorite. So.
Yeah, Pam's husband, Bill, is quite the pioneer in accessibility. He never let limitations slow him down at all. He's a role model for us all.
Role model?
He's a model on wheels. Yep.
I'm sorry, I was distracted there for a second. Mike Teeter is having trouble getting in, Pam. He's not sure if REI's firewall is blocking him or if it's so if you want to check with him for a second, and it's interesting, there is, but when you're talking about inclusion, we may all experience periods in our life where, we need accommodations.
Right.
A broken leg, an injured back, recovering from COVID when you have shortness of breath. So those flat trails. So I encourage people to think very expansively that when we're doing this universal design, this inclusive work, it could benefit you at some point in your life. And it could benefit you right now because an ADA canoe and kayak launch makes it easier for everybody to get on the water.
As a kayaker, I can tell you how many trips people kayak fine, but boy, getting in and out of a kayak, I've seen a lot of bad things happen. So yes, everyone can benefit from that. Yeah, that's a really good point, Marci. I mean, we life is a continuum. We start on wheels on a stroller, and we may end up on wheels later. So nothing really educated me about that more than taking my mother to parks when she was in a wheelchair. Even just like a 1-inch lip is hard to overcome.
Yes.
So we have a long ways to go, but and private funding really helps with this. That's where PPFF is so helpful and really augments what we can do at the state level. So a lot of our state money has to go to fixing unsafe dams and building campground loops and rebuilding wash houses and campgrounds, building visitor centers. So to really look at the ground and improve accessibility and fix and improve and add amenities, this is so valuable and so helpful.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to invite Mike Teeter in just for a minute and allow you two to overlap. Mike is one of our super volunteers, Cindy. You may recognize him. He recently won one of the awards, but he gets out there, and I think this past fall he talked to over 1,000 people about how valuable and how important state parks and state forests are. So I thought it'd be great for the two of you to overlap since he's a super volunteer and super enthusiastic. And Mike, this is Secretary Dunn, I'm sure you know.
I do. Hi, Cindy.
Good to see you. What motivates you to get out there and put in so much time?
I would say probably started when I was younger and just like growing in an appreciation for the outdoors and what they bring everybody. So I want others to experience that same love and passion for the outdoors. So yeah, more than happy to help spread the word about Pennsylvania's awesome public lands.
I think it's how we all feel. I was one of those lucky kids that grew up in a family that camped and hiked and fished and did all that. And I it really wasn't until later that I realized not everyone had that. And I can't imagine life without it. So I think that's what motivates all of us, like, clearing the barriers, making it possible, creating that opportunity for everybody.
I agree. And it's interesting when you talk to people, there was typically an adult mentor in their life, whether it was scouting, whether it was family, whether it was an aunt or uncle that introduced them to the outdoors. So I think that's a key takeaway for people listening is even if you don't have children, invite families out, help those children find the connection, because if we connect to it earlier, we tend to be more passionate about it. And for people coming in late, at the foundation, we've been working with DCNR to host some women's only events to help women who didn't have that mentoring as a young person to maybe find their space in the outdoors. But there's a lot we can do to bring other people along and introduce them to these spaces that we're all passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll say one more thing, and then I don't want to take any of Mike's time, but I mean, I think you mentioned women. When I go out with women's groups, what it is, the missing ingredient is often confidence. They just haven't done it. They need to go with a group or some organized thing at a place that is accessible and understandable, just to build the confidence and knowledge enough to then have a lifetime of enjoyment coming out of that. And that's true of any group that we're trying to reach, making people feel confident, welcome, and get a basic skill set. And they're fine because those lands are there for them.
Yes. I mean, we're fortunate in Pennsylvania, no admission fees, no parking fees, and, typically a state park within 25 miles of every resident, and hopefully soon a trail within 10 minutes of every resident. So we really appreciate what the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources is doing, not just for the outdoors, but doing for, as I said, the economy of Pennsylvania and for the health of the citizens of the Commonwealth. So thank you very much, Cindy. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before you go on for a busy day?
I'll just say we can't do it without PPFF. So encourage people to support Pennsylvania Park and Forest Foundation through ExtraGive. I do myself. Give money, volunteer, join a friends group, lean in, enjoy it more yourself. Make a commitment to get out there and don't let late fall and winter slow you down. There's a lot to be seen.
Yes, and I'll say we just launched another friends group. Friends of Promised Land is now on board, so there's a lot of opportunities for people to get involved.
Good. Oh, there's some lovely trails up there. They'll have a lot to do. So.
Yes, great. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you for being here. Hey, Mike. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry if there were firewall issues.
We got through them.
Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say.
That's right. Yeah.
So, Mike, you mentioned a little bit about what got you excited about the outdoors, and you've talked to a lot of people, and maybe share with us a little bit about what you hear from people when you're tabling at events or on a trail chatting with people about your passion for the outdoors.
Well, I mean, I think the big thing that stands out is what Pennsylvania offers in our state parks and our forests is, we've got a lot of what I would say like key things in each park. So, you could go to Trough Creek and you could see Balanced Rock. You could go to Cook Forest and you could see an old growth forest. You can go to Ricketts Glen and see a bunch of waterfalls. And I think like after talking to people, everybody has that one thing that they really like to see. And I think that gets people into our parks. It's cool to ask people like, what's your favorite state park? It opens up a whole book of like people trying to figure out where they want to go and what they like, and they start to kind of reflect back on everything that they have seen in our parks, and it really gives you a broadened view of how lucky we really are here to have all the state parks that offer so many different things.
Very true. And, it's interesting. Sometimes I get it, and I'm sure Pam gets it, is like people will say, well, what is your favorite state park? And my response is always like, that's like picking your favorite child.
It is.
You can't really do that. And in part is because they're also unique.
Yeah.
And our state forests have so much to offer. And, it depends on what you're looking for. It depends on the day. It depends on who you're with. I mean, all of them offer something amazing, and to be forced to like choose one is so difficult.
It is. It's definitely hard, and I think my answer changes probably like on a daily basis, just depending on my mood and what do I like that day.
Or where you're standing that day.
Right.
Pam, do you have a favorite that if you were forced to pick one that you would?
No, don't force me.
Okay. I have a favorite picture.
Proximity is always, Ohio Pile's right across the river, it's not the Ohio Pile, but the Great Allegheny Passage is right across the river, so I can just walk across the Yawk and I'm in the state park. Laurel Hill is just up the road, so yeah. Laurel Summit, yeah, please.
One of my favorite pictures of Pam is Pam in Ohio Pile when she's just a kid and she's wearing her Sunday best and her patent leather shoes.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure, we all have pictures of us, in maybe non-traditional garb in the outdoors.
I was going to say, when Cindy said you were talking about, having a mentor when you were young, I just said, someday I'll tell you about my family camping trip. It's a wonder I'm here at all. Let's put it that way.
That adds to the memory, though. Those are those like core memories that cause you to like reflect back on it.
Not an outdoor family, I'm afraid, but I'm here anyway. So it's possible,
Well, and sometimes, you don't have to be an outdoor family. My husband retired from the Bureau of Forestry, and he always made the comment that his family didn't go anywhere where there wasn't a porcelain toilet. So he discovered the outdoors later in life, and it became his passion. And he still actively volunteers as a campground host. He is a trail maintainer on the Appalachian Trail. So we can come into our passions at any point in time, as long as we have somebody to introduce us to them, or when new people coming into that space feel welcomed. Yeah. And we all have a role in making people feel welcomed.
I think that's what's really cool about the Passport book is it opens up doors for people to start exploring state parks at any point. And it's really neat to see people like get so involved in it, even like later in life, to start to realize I didn't even know we had 124 state parks, and then they start hitting one after another, and before you know it, it's an addiction to get the stamps. So
it's so funny when we're hosting, how many people stop and say, I am doing the Passport, can I get a stamp? And we're like, oh, how do you like, I feel like a secret shopper. How do you like the Passport? What do you think about it? And people it is driving people to visit parks that they may not. We go where we know, and it gives you information to maybe step out beyond what you know to explore new places.
No, absolutely. It opens up all kinds of doors, and it also has a lot of information in it and allows people to kind of look through and start to discover things that they didn't even know were in their own backyard.
Absolutely. One of the things that we did this year, we have somebody commenting that they love the Passport book, and somebody also commenting that they love trees. And fortunately, we have so many of those, and we're putting more in as well. Pam brought up the Passport book. It is available on our store. Great, makes a great Christmas gift, I will say. A little sales pitch there. But also on our website, we this year put together a guide to the wild and natural areas in Pennsylvania state parks and state forests, with a little checklist to help people explore these areas. And we've been putting together information, sort of like the insider's scoop, by talking to state parks and state forests and friends groups. Because one of the things that we get from people is like, yeah, I show up to Pine Grove Furnace and it's so big, where do I start? Or I'm traveling with a child. What's the best trail for, being there with a kid? So we're trying to look it through the eyes of the questions that we get and develop some resources. And Pam's put into the chat box the link to where you can download those resources from our webpage.
Yeah. The publications page on the website is like the first place we send people whenever they want to know anything at all, because it's just jam-packed. You can find out about the Passport, the wild and natural areas. We just did one on museums that are close to parks. So here you can find there's just tons of stuff here. So if you know you're going to be on the road, here's places to go. If, gosh, I'm going to be in Clearfield. So you can go there and find out what's close by. So, yeah.
It's so exciting. That's so many exciting things. Mike, what's one of your favorite memories that's shareable?
Yeah, I mean, I've got lots. I mean, I definitely remember as a kid going to Cook Forest a lot, and yeah, like having a bear come into our campsite at night and things like that. I went down the Clarion River before and enjoyed that with my parents, and those are definitely core memories that I have. And then as of recent, I love to hike. I love to backpack. So getting out there and seeing things that I haven't seen before, and getting into our state forests and finding the little nooks and crannies in the corners of the state that you had no idea existed, and the things that are out there. I mean, little things will excite you whenever you're backpacking or hiking, like when you come across an old like dynamite shed where they used to store dynamite in the middle of the forest, and you have no idea why it's there, and you're like, I did not know this was here. But that is like those little hidden gems that make things so cool. I think recently my biggest memories is obviously just being with my family, with my wife and my daughter, and letting her experience nature and take it in the same way that I did when I was younger, and hope that she gains an appreciation for it as she progresses in life as well.
Excellent. I see Pam pulled up your social media. One-Eyed Wonders. If people want to follow Mike, he posts some pretty amazing pictures, as well as there might inspire some places for you to explore, and not just live it through his eyes, but get out there on your own.
Yeah.
And you're right, Mike. Some of those things that you stumble upon, I think of the Quahana Wild area.
Oh yeah.
And there's so much interesting history there.
There is.
If you look at it from a big picture map, it's round. Why is that natural area round? What's the story behind that? And I'm not going to share the story. I think it's good reason to dig to learn a little bit more about that space, that's where when I was growing up. Mike, there is a question for you in the chat then. And we spent a lot of time in Elk Forest in the Quahana, so that kind of shaped my passion for the outdoors. But we got a question, and we'll let Mike ask this, and then we'll provide our ideas too. Somebody says they'll be visiting Pittsburgh next year. Any recommendations for parks around there? So Mike, what would you recommend? And then I'll ask Pam, and then I'll share my recommendations too.
Yeah, well, I'll throw two out there. I mean, obviously, Point State Park is a very unique park because it's right in Pittsburgh, and it is the point where all the rivers meet. It's super cool. That one is unique as far as state parks go in the state, and also highly visited because it's right in the city. But I would give some love to Raccoon Creek as well, which is out on the other side of Pittsburgh. If you're going to go in the summer, they have a very large wildflower area that is really worth checking out. It's a preserve, and they have trails to go through, and it's something to be seen. That is a cool park, and if you're into camping, it's a big campground at Raccoon Creek.
Yeah, and I'd recommend the Mineral Springs Trail. A fun trail to hike. Great, thank you, Mike. What would your two recommendations be?
Me?
Yeah.
I definitely second point, because I'm always amazed at the people who don't realize that Point State Park is a state park, because it's right in the center of the city and you just don't think of it. It's also either the terminus or the beginning of the Great Allegheny Passage, depending on how you look at it. So it's a great way to jump off on a 150-mile bike ride, or celebrate, as Marci and I did a couple of years ago. We rode from Ohiopyle to Pittsburgh in one day, like the crazy people that we sometimes are.
And then we sang "I Love to Ride My Bicycle."
That's right.
It's somewhere online.
That video still exists on social media somewhere.
It does.
I'm not going to go dig for it, but also go north of the city to the Moraine, McConnell's Mill, Jennings trifecta, because that's really three very different and wonderful parks. And again, wildflowers at Jennings, the prairie there is pretty cool. So yeah, Pittsburgh will not leave you disappointed.
Yes, and I think, I'm not sure which way you're getting to Pittsburgh, but I would recommend a stop en route to the Forbes State Forest. There is so much to explore in the Forbes, including the high point of Pennsylvania. at Mount Davis. But then you also have a number of state parks that are within the Forbes, the Laurels, the Lynn Run. So there's a lot to explore. So, I would give myself a lot of time and say, hey, this is going to be my vacation. I'm not just zipping out to Point State Park. I am to Pittsburgh. I'm going to make this an adventure and explore all there is to explore in Pennsylvania in the West.
Pam, you said McConnell's Mill, and I totally spaced on that one, but that is a gem of a park. Like, that's one that nobody seems to talk about, and it's beautiful. It's such a great park.
Every year, photo contest, McConnell's Mill. So yeah, people are loving it. They're just not talking about it. So maybe
Nice.
It's a secret. Well, and I will say, if you are a fan of McConnell's Mill or Marine, or you've never been to either of them, the movie Pale Blue Eyes was filmed in both of those parks. So, unfortunately, he only has 3 days. So, well, it might inspire you to go back out because there's so much to do. But good question. Thank you for asking. But Pale Blue Eyes is an interesting movie that was filmed in these two spaces, and challenge you to see what you recognize, what's from where the things were shot in the two parks. So, Mike, we're starting to come up to the end of our time. So I'd like you to share any other thing that you'd like to share about your passion for parks and forests.
Thank you for everything you do. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. We have to table. Let's call Mike.
I appreciate everything that you all do and getting people out there. But yeah, I love to get people outside. I like to see people recreate, and I like people to see what Pennsylvania has to offer. I think we're a really unique state with a lot of things that people can go see and they can do, and it's great to drive people in that direction and have them build memories and see things from the past, like the CCC areas that are still left here from the late 30s, early 40s, and like those cabins and the dams. And there's so much inside of our parks and forests that you have to experience it for yourself. And a lot of times things are right in your own backyard and you had no idea.
That's the truth. So, Mike, what's the park in your backyard?
Blue Knob. Yeah, Blue Knob State Park is my local park, and that's a great CCC park as well. They did a lot of work up there, and Blue Knob is interesting because it butts up against a ski resort, so you get a little bit of resort life and state park life. But yeah, great mountain bike trails, really good hiking. It's also Pennsylvania's highest campground is in Blue Knob State Park. So
yes, and I had been to Blue Knob several times, but I camped there for the first time this summer, and got to see the playground that we put in. We had an anonymous donor donate money to put in a playground, and the campground was high, and it was the start of Hurricane Debbie, and I had all of these phone calls to do. So I was literally in the rain in my hood taking phone calls out in the middle of the field. But really, really beautiful park and a nice place to be. So fortunate that you have that right in your backyard.
Oh yeah, we're very fortunate.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Mike. What's your next trip before you go? What's next on your list of?
I'm not sure. I there's a few different trails I would like to do. I would like to get up into like above Quahana and do the Fredwoods trail.
It's lovely. I love that trail.
Yeah, I've not done that, and it's been on my list for a really long time. So I'm gonna make that one happen. I love the rock formations and the vistas. It just looks great.
Awesome. And Mike, I would be remiss. I mean, you do work for REI, and there's a big REI day coming up called Opt Outside. Do you want to take a minute to talk about that?
Yeah, a few years back, REI decided that we weren't going to partake in the madness of Black Friday anymore. So we decided to close our doors and pay all of our employees to go outside and do whatever makes them happy out in the outdoors. So yeah, we call it Opt Outside, and we opt to go outside that day. So usually take a hike or go visit a state park or forest, or it just whatever makes you happy. It's a big day to get a Christmas tree if you're into that and you want to go out and do that. Whatever makes somebody happy in the outdoors, that's what we go for.
Excellent. And we encourage other people to hashtag opt outside
Absolutely.
Black Friday, and then consider Small Business Saturday as your shopping day, and then Cyber Monday so you can support REI.
Plenty of time to get shopping done.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. But excellent. Thank you so much for being with us, Mike. And you teed us up really well talking about the history, because our next guest is Dr. Alan Dietrich Ward, who just wrote a book called The Cradle of Conservation that talks about the conservation heritage and the conservation history in Pennsylvania. So that was a great segue, Mike. You didn't even know it. You teed us up perfectly.
I was thinking the same thing. I've been listening.
Awesome.
Mike, we want to get in. I think we have a lot of topics that the REI folks would be really interested in. So let's find a time to get in and talk to your people about the history of conservation in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you
See
for
everybody.
being here. Bye. Hey, Alan DW, Dr. Alan Dietrich Ward.
Good morning, my friends. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
What an extra day for a give, huh?
Yes. Yes, it's a great day. And we've had a wonderful conversation. We started out with Secretary Cindy Adams-Dunn, just talking about our parks and forests here today. And then you heard Mike talking about his enthusiasm and keyed us up so well to transition into your new book, The Cradle of Conservation, which celebrates the conservation heritage of Pennsylvania and is an outgrowth of the PA Conservation Heritage Project, of which the foundation, the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation, is one of many partners trying to capture that rich legacy of conservation that we have. So Pam's bringing up your book right now. So
Marci, I have a proposal for you, a little surprise maybe. So I noticed, scrolling through my social media ahead of this, that anyone who donated at different portions of the day gets entered into a drawing to win some fancy REI merch, right? Did I see that right?
You did see that right.
So I have here in my hands, a copy of Cradle of Conservation, right? Copy of Cradle of Conservation that we're going to have a drawing for. I'm going to put this into your drawing that folks who donate today are going to get put into that drawing. And if they get selected, they donate to PA Parks and Forests Foundation, they get selected, and I will personally put this into an envelope and send it to them as my contribution to the Day of Giving. How's that sound?
Awesome. That sounds great. And will you sign it for them?
I certainly will.
Okay.
Well, Alan, and we know that you're an outdoor enthusiast as well, and a trail maintainer. So you're not just a historian and a professor and an author.
I have my I need to re-up it, but I have my Appalachian Trail Conservancy chainsaw
Sawyer.
Yep, I have. I am a trained chainsaw enthusiast with the ATC. So yeah.
Yes. So you wear many hats.
Some of them hard. That's right.
Some of them hard. I love that. So tell us a little bit about the book, which is available on the PPFF website, where you can potentially win it now. Thank you so much,
that's right,
Alan, for that.
My pleasure. Well, it is a whole lot in a little package, right? It covers as much as I could cram in there of all of Pennsylvania's environmental and conservation history, from the first Pennsylvanians all the way up to the children of today. I really see, as you know, it's part of the Pennsylvania Conservation Heritage Project's outreach, focused on really underscoring the legacy of natural resource conservation that we have here, and then looking to the future of this legacy that we all enjoy. How do we then go about and use the lessons from the past to encourage good public policies in today's world and going forward? So it hits on a lot of different things, but I tried really hard to make it something that's a joy to read as much as it is informative.
Yes. And we just discussed this book on Wednesday in the monthly book club that PPFF hosts online. And, the comments from the folks there were like, it was a lot of information, but it was accessible to the non-historian. And you presented stories and narratives and information that were new to so many people.
That's right. Yeah, even to, so, I mean, some of the stories in here are, are known to folks in the conservation community, but there are even some that folks who think they know everything there is to know about PA conservation and environment that's going to be new to them. There's the, of course, the story of Ralph Brock, our first, the world's first professionally trained African-American forester. There's the story of Myra Lloyd Dock, the mother of Pennsylvania of state forests and conservation. But then there are stories of other people that are even less well known. Maria Cox and Mary Lundy, chief corn planter in the Kinzu Dam. There are all kinds of stories in here, told and untold, that I think are going to engage with audiences of all types.
Yes. Yeah. And, I fancied myself pretty up to date on conservation history. And as I was reading some of the proofs, there were names that popped out to me that I had been writing down, or, like we have an intern right now. And it's like, hey, we need to add these stories more in depth because you were limited in pages. Sometimes you take that deep dive into these key players, as well as the places and policies that shaped conservation legacy. This just brought up the PA Conservation Heritage website, where we try to capture stories. And there is a place that if you feel there's a story missing, because we admit this is not encapsulate everything and everybody, please, bring our attention to it so that we can continue to capture stories and capture information about places and people and policies to help educate people. Because I think, Alan, this is your area, not mine, but history informs the future. So maybe talk a little bit about how you see this book as a tool.
Sure. Well, I think we often tend to, or we can often believe that we are encountering problems for the first time, and of course we are. History doesn't repeat itself, as they say, but it rhymes. And
I like that.
The role of the historian is not to simply say, well, this, what we're facing today is exactly the same as in the past. No, the role of the historian is to kind of critically analyze the situations, the contexts in which decision making in the past happened, to be able to find wisdom, right, and judgment to think through the scenarios that we are facing today, right, to inform our discussions, not to say, not to kind of think that we have all the answers, because we certainly don't. But I think Pennsylvania is a particularly important place to study the history of the environment and natural resource conservation, because of its complexity, right? And this is one of kind of the key areas that we have in the book, because of its nature, pun intended. No one single group kind of can dominate public policy making in Pennsylvania in the way that it can in some other states or some other places. You have to find compromise in Pennsylvania, and I think that, again, that makes it a good stand-in for the nation as a whole. We have both upstream and downstream residents with the economic interests that both of those positions convey. The reality is that everyone says that they want a clean and healthy environment. Fair enough, right? But the ways in which you obtain that clean and healthy environment are really a matter of public debate and sort of legislation. And if we can look to the ways in the past our ancestors sought to find solutions, and at times were successful, and at times were not successful that can help us to better understand and contextualize the problems we have today, and not simply kind of throw up our hands and say, well, it can't ever, nothing can possibly be done. Those idiots will never see the light, right? Or it can't possibly be done. Those other idiots can't possibly see the light. We've done it in the past. We've found solutions, even as imperfect ones, to complex issues. We've done it in the past. We can do it in the future, and not just can we do it in the future, but we have to do it in the future. There's simply no choice but to find those kinds of solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. Stephen Covey, who people might associate with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about going into problem solving with a win-win attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And your book does help it to inform, how to take a win-win approach by looking at some of the complexity and how we may have navigated it in the past, knowing that, the world continues to change.
That's
and
right.
How we navigate it might be different, but it's a tool. And those tools are very important for conservation and for economic development as well. So these are things that we have to balance.
Well, and I think also, kind of providing the context in which different kinds of decisions are made over time becomes really important, right? Because, we can tend to look back and say, why did those idiots in the past not realize X, Y, or Z? We're so much better than they are, or like that, when I teach my students that oftentimes kind of tends to be the way narratives happen, right? But by sort of placing decision-making within context of here is the situation that people were faced with, and here is how they navigated through it. I think that, again, without being overly kind of rose-colored glasses, understanding the ways in which people in the past navigated difficult situations and came to, some types of positive outcomes, again, I think can help to, it can give us solace, if not, it can give us hope that we can do the same things today. But of course, these things don't just happen automatically, right? And I think back to your observation about sort of the movers and shakers, the conservation heroes, unless you have people that are sort of willing to both have their convictions, but then also be willing to work with people who may share some of their convictions, but may have a different perspective. Things only get done when you build coalitions to move things. And I think that that's an important lesson for us today. Again, you may be absolutely right, but if you can't bring other people on board with you, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. You can be right. You can be right and alone. But that
sounds lovely.
But in terms of policy, simply being right, as we know, doesn't get you very far. It has to be a matter of bringing other folks along, and I think also being willing to listen and to empathize and understand other perspectives in order to build solutions.
Yeah, and I think I think that really stood out in your book. I mean, it wasn't just movers and shakers who were making these advances and having conversations about, we have a loss of trees and there's all these impacts from that, or air pollution, water quality. Yeah, but it's citizens who turn their passion into a movement, and their passion into educating themselves and building coalitions and helping to find solutions from a broad perspective. And that's one of the beauty of bringing a lot of people around, is that we know what we know, and if we can bring in other people's perspectives, we may be able to find that solution to a problem.
I hope so. Well, not just I hope so, but I guess I should say I know so, because we have no choice. I mean, we don't have another choice. There has to. I mean, you only bang your head against the wall for so long before you either tune out or you figure out another way to get involved. And I'm a figure out another way to get involved kind of guy. Yeah.
We're starting to get to the end of our time. So I want to ask if there's one thing that stood out to you in the book that you want to close with. or if there's something else that you'd like to close with, and then Pam and I are going to uncover our photo contest award winners.
Awesome. Well, I think the thing that stood out to me the most in the book was the passion that Pennsylvanians have for the world around them. And that results in kind of different things. There's not a simple, like, if you love the outdoors, then therefore you are going to be X in terms of public policy. It's way more complicated than that, right? But Pennsylvania's landscapes really inspire fierce devotion, and they're a really, really important part of people's identity in a way that I think is not always fully acknowledged. And I think that can become problematic because if you don't acknowledge, without getting granular, if you don't acknowledge that people who have a different, kind of political perspective than you are kind of equally passionate about the landscape, about their environment, about their the community that they live in, it becomes really easy to kind of fall into the trap of not understanding other people, right? And I think that one of the things that really has come out of this for me is this real belief that if we can find ways to link people's passion for the world around them to effective public policies, even if maybe those policies don't go as far in one way or the other as folks think they should, that does provide us a positive way forward. And I think there are that is demonstrated in the massive popular support throughout Pennsylvania for certain kinds of conservation programs, farmland preservation programs, for example, clean water programs, things like that. And it's a matter, I think, of kind of using that consensus around certain kinds of conservation and environmental issues as a gathering point to then begin from a common ground to then think about, okay, well, where do we go from here? That, to my mind, really kind of came out from the book, that notion that Pennsylvanians really do love their environment. How do we go about sort of building up, effective coalitions around that shared love?
Yes. And I think that legacy of connection to our lands is really a characteristic of a Pennsylvanian.
Agreed. I agree.
Yeah. And, at the beginning, when we were talking to Secretary Dunn, we were talking about how we were unsuccessful in having trail money allocated last year in the General Assembly, and how we're revisiting it. And part of what came out from reading your book is that we didn't do our due diligence of bringing in enough partners from different perspectives. I mean, when we're investing in place, there are small businesses like landscape architects and engineers that are benefiting from that money. It's also chambers of commerce, because we know trail users spend money. So that diverse group of people who all have a connection to trails really should be involved in this conversation of why it's so important to be investing.
Yeah.
So, the book is great, and it is an easy read. There's a lot of information, and what it's going to do is going to send you back to our website, and you're going to go, I want to watch the video about
That's right. Yep.
Goddard. I want to watch this video about Myra Lloyd Dock.
I challenge anyone to get through that. I challenge anyone to get through that Myra Lloyd Dock documentary without crying at the end, because it is so beautiful.
Yeah, and I cry every time I watch the Doc Goddard one, because when I hear his voice, I was fortunate to overlap a little bit with him in my career. Every time I hear his voice, I break into tears. So there's a lot of exciting role models and a lot of enthusiasm that can come out of reading the book. So thank you, Alan, for being here.
Pleasure.
Thank you also for offering to add your book as one of the prize drawings. And
you let me know, and I'll get it in the mail.
I would say keep an eye out on the Conservation Heritage website as well, because we are going to be booking Alan for book talks all around the Commonwealth. So you'll want to see him in person to take a deeper dive into the book. So great. Thank you, Alan.
Good luck with the rest of the day of ExtraGive. So
thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Bye. So before we end, we are so excited because the Judge's Choice Award winners of the photo contest have been chosen. Our judges spent some time reviewing all of the pictures. So if you're here now, you're seeing it first here. Hold on, drum roll, and I'll move this over to Pam here.
Ta-da!
Aw.
Aw. So this was the category of awe.
Literally.
Winner from Clear Creek State Park by Carrie Fritz. Like, here's a vital connection to the world, right?
Yes. And all is so important. Oh.
This one's near and dear to my heart, not because I am that person in that boat, no way, but that's Ohiopyle right down the way. And the category was Beyond the Edge. And I mean, obviously the judges realized that the edge here is so well defined, and that's great.
Yes, and I had to zoom in to make sure it wasn't my stepson.
In fact, if you zoom in on this, we believe that's a woman kayak.
It is a woman kayak. So thanks for
being
a role model.
This photo just leaves me speechless. This is A Leap into the Lesser Known by Colin Gillette from up at Mount Pisgah. And I'm sure that the judges just, found this absolutely astonishing. I think I did. Yes, I took a little excerpt from this one just because, I mean, it's just a stunning image. So way to go, Colin. Gorgeous. Leap into new experiences, Gloria Benfer, who's been a longtime PPFF member and supporter. In fact, I think we've seen these little girls grow up. I
was wondering, was one of these little girls the little girl with the passport?
I'm not sure. We'll have to ask Gloria because it's possible. But yeah, we've seen these little girls for a long time, and bless their hearts, look at them reading that map. Yes.
I love it. We love it. We love it.
So they are obviously finding new experiences.
Please teach your children how to read a map, and let's not just be dependent on GPS.
Here. So leaping into volunteerism, here's one of the most interesting ways to volunteer, and that's bird banding. So thanks to Maureen Dwyer at Presque Isle for banding this is a yellow warbler, if I'm not mistaken.
Hopefully.
Could be. Could be. And if you ever saw the Winged Migration movie that we hosted last year, the documentary, the yellow warbler was one of the birds that was featured in that film. It's really,
and I think it's still showing at the Whitaker Center.
Oh, is it?
We are a long-term sponsor of that, and it's a great documentary. And you see it through the eyes of the wildlife. It's really cool.
Yeah. Speaking of not being able to not cry watching something, you will sob like an idiot. So young photographer is, I believe, our last category, and this is Andy Zhang at French Creek State Park, the bullfrog. I think, Marci, you always point out that the young photographers seem to be the ones that go for the close
the micro. And then we have the overall. Do we have
God, yeah.
Oh, Pam. She'll bring it up here. Give her a minute.
Get ready.
Ta-da.
Best in show. And this was submitted to the Beyond the Edge category. And I mean, this is absolutely beyond the edge of the universe right here. The river. We don't know what this fire is, but we're going to talk to Hillary about that. The comet, the northern lights.
The mountain edges.
Just, yeah.
And celebrating one of our state forests.
Yes.
So
proud the sproul every time you get the chance.
So we are very excited and to share those with you. The People's Choice voting is currently happening on our Facebook page. So feel free to pop over there and see all the amazing photographs. Our theme next year is our theme overall for the foundation is trails. As you may have picked up, we are very excited about trails and want to put a lot of focus on the role of trails in Pennsylvania and the importance of trails and getting people out onto the trails, because you don't really need any special equipment, closed-toed shoes and water bottle to stay hydrated and maybe some snacks in your pocket and you're good to go. but we'll be announcing next year's photo contest, and we really appreciate everybody that takes the time to enter the photo contest, because these photos help us in messaging about these amazing places that we have in Pennsylvania. And
You're here.
thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your love of the outdoors and your passion for photography with us and with.
How can you look at that and not want to come visit?
Yes. It makes me sad that I missed the Aurora Borealis.
I didn't see it either.
Yeah, it's tough. But thank you all for being with us here today, and for being a fan of our state parks and state forests, and for being a supporter and a member or a donor of the foundation, or perhaps you're a volunteer. We really appreciate that. Our parks and forests really rely on the work that we do and the work of our volunteers, along with the staff in the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and the funding allocated by our General Assembly. So we're very appreciative of all the players that it takes to make this state park and state forest system that we have the great system that it is. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and from the bottom of the hearts of all the millions of people that enjoy them. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Take care.
We're going to sign off. Thank you. Bye-bye.